The Hangar Z podcast welcomes Terry Blakemore, owner and CEO of Quantum Helicopters in Chandler, Arizona.
The guy that was the formation lead who saw his jet explode, 13-stage compressor exploded, and the whole thing was engulfed in flames. As the flight lead's continuing down the runway, turns off to the taxiway, looks back and sees Tank's jet is totally engulfed. He says, he's dead. There's no other way. 45 minutes later, Tank walks in the squadron, and the guys thought, we just saw a ghost.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor magazine. In this episode, John Gray and Jack Schonely have a conversation with the owner and CEO of Quantum Helicopters, Terry Blakemore. Terry's story of how he ended up owning Quantum Helicopters in Chandler, Arizona is unique, starting with a fixed-wing flight at age 9. That flight, with his dad, resulted in a focus on aviation and the goal of flying fighter jets. Terry's hard work paid off with an appointment to the United States Air Force Academy and eventually flying F-16s. Terry tells us about his interest in helicopters that led to him taking lessons at, you guessed it, Quantum Helicopters. His aviation and business experience led to eventually owning the business. We discuss flying an F-16, risk management, leadership, flight instruction, and the important safety culture while training students. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Hangar Z podcast. We also appreciate you taking a minute to write a review. These little things actually make a big difference for us to bring you quality guests on this podcast. Thanks for doing that, and we really appreciate you listening. Thank you to our sponsors, Dallas Avionics Incorporated, CNC Technologies, and Robinson Helicopter Company Incorporated.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is drone. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
So post 9/11, what happened is, you remember you see the videos, some now of President Bush. He's on Air Force One. All the aircraft have been grounded. And now he's got 2 F-16s on his wing. Yeah. They're providing escort because they don't know what else is coming, right? Well, Operation Noble Eagle was something that was stood up in the wake of 9/11 to say, we have to protect our own home defense structures here. We got to have fighters doing combat air patrols over major U.S. cities that we think could get hit next, over stadiums. When the president moved, we needed protection for him. When he's located in a spot, they needed fighters over top to be again ready to defend. So that's what Operation Noble Eagle was all about, was homeland defense, particularly of sites, cities that we thought would be threats. It also was a program that we were trained as to how this would happen if you ever ended up in a scenario where NORAD is literally telling you we have a hostile aircraft, whether it's an airliner or whatever, and we're going to ask you to shoot it down. So something that you would never, ever want to be a part of, but you were trained. Here's how we're going to identify them. Here's the process and what we're going to ultimately need, which is basically SecDef saying to NORAD, clear to engage that hostile. And so we had to be ready to, we flew with live missiles and we were ready to shoot down any aircraft that they deemed a threat to people on the ground. You were going to have to take it out. So that's what Operation Noble Eagle was. We did a lot of that in the wake of 9/11.
Wow. What about in 2004, Red Flag? Tell our listeners what is Red Flag and what was your experience there?
So Red Flag was developed out of a necessity out of the Vietnam War, where they realized that the first combat sorties, like the first 5, were the ones where you're going to lose your lieutenants. They're going to get shot down from, an air-to-air threat, or AAA from the ground, surface-to-air missile, something. So they said those first 5 are so stressful that if we could replicate that in the United States and kind of get them through those first 5, they'd show up and be safer when they showed up to Vietnam. So that was the heritage of it. And it's just continued. And it's an exercise where you have about 50 aircraft, you have a mission commander, and you have a big plan that's developed in the days prior. And it's an exercise. It may be that it's downtown Tehran. It may be that it's North Korea. It may be that it's, China. And you have a whole scenario, and you have all these NATO countries. When I was there, we were fighting with alongside of the Spaniards, the Italians, the Germans, the Dutch, obviously the English, and then the Americans. And so there were about 50 of us there. All of my red flag sorties were at night, which is when you want to fight anyway. So everybody's on night vision goggles. You got tankers out there refueling all of us before we push. You got bombers dropping bombs. You got, air-to-air guys targeting and doing sweeps. And then you got fighter escorts. You got, other guys coming multi-role behind them dropping. And they've got all kinds of threat systems, things they can shoot at you, lightning, radars lighting you up. They got aggressor aircraft that are fighting as red air. And it's just this massively complex, awesome exercise that is supposed to be more difficult, far more complicated, get you through those first 5. And it's just over the years, it's just been kind of a thing that's perfected. The Air Force does red flag exercises multiple times a year. There are guys that are assigned permanently there as aggressor aircraft and threat replication from the ground and otherwise. They'll do a CSAR mission. Somebody gets shot down. You got to go pick them up, and you're going to have ground forces trying to get them. It's just replicating every part, and it's just a preparation deal. Really fun. I got to do that as a young first lieutenant, and you're in this room full of other fighter pilots and bomber pilots and cargo and tanker, and it's just intimidating. But you're like, again, man, here I am, a 24-year-old kid playing a big boys game, and you get to jump in your own $30 million F-16 and go make it happen. Go get on your gogs, go fly, get your gas, and then push out, fight in, drop your bombs, fight your way out, and then go home and land. And then there's a really cool breakfast place just outside of Nellis Air Force Base where everybody'd go and have pancakes and eggs and whatever. And you'd talk till 3 a.m. or whatever, and then go back, go get some sleep, and then do it again the next day.
Wow. That's cool. How long did the red flag last? I mean, you said 2-3 times a year they do it, but how long is this scenario training go on when you go?
Each group that is there for a couple of weeks. And you're going through multiples, because some of those guys are getting their first exposure to red flag. Others of those folks are getting mission commander sign-offs. I mean, you're going to be the one guy standing in front of 75 or 80 briefing the entire war plan. And so there's different levels of folks. Some guys are flight leads, some guys are wingmen, some guys are instructors. So everybody's getting a different level, but you're there for a couple of weeks. And then there's also the Air Force Fighter Weapons School, which is their Top Gun, which is located at Nellis. So I spent a ton of time at Nellis because you do Fighter Weapons School support. You're fighting those guys and pushing them through. You're like the Red Air, the aggressors to the Top Gun guys. Okay. And so we spent a ton of time in Vegas. That's where I spent most of my time, being the calm guy, trying to protect the rowdy fighter pilots, keeping them out of Binions and the other casinos that they'd want to spend all their money at.
I can relate to that. I was the designated driver most of the time. But now we got Waymo, right, John? we just did that, Terry, in Phoenix. We did Waymo for the first time. We both got to experience that with Shauna and John, and that was wild. Yeah, really cool.
I haven't done it yet. I need to. I hear people talk. Did you get stuck in a circle or anything?
No.
No. All right.
Nothing dramatic. We heard some stories though, as we talked about it on the floor. People said, "Oh man, I had one lock up 4-wheel lock skid in the middle of an intersection. Nothing's happening." And they're like, "Oh yeah." And then another one that said, "Oh yeah, we've had an officer stop one for going the wrong way in a one-way. And when the officer lights it up, with his light bar, it pulls over. Officer comes up, and you're talking on a speaker. Somebody's talking to you from Waymo about what's going on, and how can we fix this? But ours was uneventful.
Wonderful.
It was fascinating.
Yeah,
you liked it, John. John was smiling ear to ear.
It was cool. I love all that.
Cool.
It's just autopilot. It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was amazed at the number of friends when I posted it that said, hell no. I mean, and these
Right.
are guys that are really studs. I mean, people that go, oh man, I'd love to be like them. And they said, no freaking way. And I'm like, I wanted to try it. And I'm glad we did. Glad
That's
we
awesome.
did. Pretty neat.
I
We'll
don't know
have to
what
do it.
their growth thing is, but I see when I fly over to Williams Gateway, which is east of Chandler,
Yeah.
there is a parking lot. There must be 1,000 of those Waymo cars out there. And I don't know if that's part of their production line, or that's where they go do repairs. And I don't know, but man, they are ready to like fill the streets of America with Waymo.
Well, Phoenix, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them. We didn't walk a block without seeing two or three of them, right?
Wow.
I mean, you couldn't step out of the hotel without seeing them. They were everywhere.
Well, for the commuter world, think about how nice it would be to get in the back of a Waymo and just sleep on your way to work. Like I drive an hour. I live in Peoria. I drive an hour over to Quantum each day.
Yeah.
And because my son works here as both a mechanic and he's learning to fly, we split. He'll drive one way and I'll drive the other. So I kind of have a Waymo driver going home. But it's nice because I get to do work. I can make calls if I want to just take a nap. So I could see the benefit in the long run for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, time is flying by here, but I do want to talk about, based on what I've seen and heard and read, you have a passion for instructing. You did a lot of instructing in different ways and probably still do some instructing. Tell us about that love of instructing and why do you love it so much? What does it mean to you to be an instructor?
It feels like as an instructor, you have the ability to mentor, shape, mold, and build somebody to be the right kind of, and just insert it, right? If you're an instructor and a professor kind of role at an academy, at a school, whatever, it's to make a professional in this regard. So for me with flying, I was an instructor pilot in the F-16, both domestic and foreign. That's a cool thing to watch a guy go from nothing to being a really capable F-16 pilot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an instructor here at Quantum. I'm a CFII here, and I fly 3 or 4 times a week. And that's because I love it. And that's because I want to keep my hand on the pulse of what it's like to be the instructor. Being an instructor is all about clarity, right? Take a concept that's difficult, complex, confusing, and make it simple and understandable so that person can learn, execute, and deliver whatever it is that they're going to be headed for. So clarity is the enemy of miscommunication. So I want to sit down with a guy or gal and say, okay, we're going to talk today about auto rotations and why we do them, how they work, how we can do them safely, and the process to do it so that we kind of demystify this thing that people think is so impossible. I tell people all the time that are fixed wing guys, I would much rather lose my engine in a helicopter than an airplane any day.
Yeah.
Because I'll auto rotate this thing and put it in 1,000 different spots.
Right.
We do it every day. And oh, by the way, when you do an auto rotation the correct way, you're disconnecting the engine totally from the rotor system, and you are legitimately doing an auto rotation just like your engine quit. And because we do them to full downs as well, we might as well turn the engine off because we're doing it to a full down today. So we practice and teach something that's really, really important for them to learn. It makes them a better airman. It makes them a better judge. It makes them a better, pilot. They understand. And I love watching that process. I love watching a person walk in the door. They're an airline pilot, 30,000 hours. They've always wanted to fly a helicopter. And I'll just tell them, listen, you're going to love it. This is great, but you're going to need to be patient with yourself because it's going to take 5 to 10 hours to get your brain to settle down and understand how to hover. And you just got to accept it. We're going to teach you. It's going to take a little while, but then one day it's going to click. And then we're going to start accelerating your understanding. We're going to get into auto rotations and then pinnacles and confinements, and you're going to learn. And by the time you finish here, you're going to be a safe, competent pilot. I'm not going to send you to a check ride until I am confident that when you pass that check ride, you have a nice long career ahead of you. And I'll say to them, I'm going to show you this little thing here. I'm going to grab it. I'll say to these guys when they solo, we're going to give you a rotor blade cut. And the rotor blade is a 12-year timed out rotor blade that we cut up and we give it to the student. And here's the line and the understanding behind it. In the Air Force, you get your wings, your first set of wings, you break them in half. You hand one half to a loved one, and the other half you keep. And the idea is this is the only set of broken wings we ever want you to have. You fly and be an outstanding pilot the rest of your career. Same thing with this. I say to them, this is the only broken rotor blade I ever want to be associated with your name. Put it on your desk, be proud of it. You soloed. You got the date, the time, your instructor. This was my son who I got to send to solo recently. And this is the only one. So go be a great pilot the rest of your life. Never stop learning, never stop growing. And I love the process of watching a person get that and then accelerate and become really better than they could have ever thought they would be. In fact, I want to tell them, I want you to be a better pilot than I am. I'm going to set you on the right course. Now go have an unbelievable career. That's why I love instructing.
That blade that you just held there, is that something you brought to Quantum, or is that tradition from before?
So the Air Force wing thing, that broken piece was something I brought. But I had a guy who was an Army guy who said, hey, we used to get like a rotor blade piece. Have you ever done that? And I said, you know what? That's a great idea.
It is.
We'll do it with the rotor blades just like we did with the wings. So it was kind of a combination, but Daniel, who's a Black Hawk pilot now, former instructor here with the Border Patrol, he's the one that said, hey, could we get a rotor blade? And so everybody loves these now. It sits on your desk. Cool. It's a cool memento. We enjoy giving them out.
That is really cool. I mean, that's something that you'd strive to get. Very, very cool. Great idea.
So no t-shirt getting ripped at Quantum. You're going to get a rotor blade.
Wow, nice.
I got a high five.
You got a high five, John, when you solo?
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wasn't a rotor blade.
Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at cnctechnologies.com.
We've talked about the winging ceremony that you guys have at LAPD a lot. And I think a lot of the reasons I like it is because you've accomplished something that was so difficult. And what you just talked about, that first solo, is such a difficult place to get to. You know, it's, I think, one of the most monumental accomplishments for that new helicopter pilot. So I love that you celebrate that with something that they'll cherish forever. And it'll be part of you know, their decor in their office to remind them of how hard it was to get to that point.
Yeah,
really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump into the question. As we were talking in the beginning of the conversation, it really struck me that, you know, you've flown in all kinds of jets, including the F-16. You go to your first flight in a helicopter. You had the initial interest in like, it might be really cool to fly a helicopter, but you hadn't been in one. Talk to me about your first experience in a helicopter and how that compared to the other flights you'd been on in jets.
Yeah. So let me back up and just say I had been in a Huey in the military during basic training. And then I had a friend who, when we were in the middle of a business deal, he became a friend. We were really doing a sale of a company. He said, hey, you know, come down to Miami and jump in my 407 GX. And we're going to fly it all the way up the East Coast until we get to Canada.
Wow.
So I had like the greatest helicopter cross country ever.
That is a good one.
So let's talk about that flight, because that was your first memorable experience, at least in the front seat, right, of a helicopter.
Yeah. That's
How
right.
did that compare to your flight experience in jets?
Well, so what I tell people is that they are both awesome and just two totally different kinds of fun.
Yeah.
So the reason it's awesome to fly, let's say a jet, is we fly our low levels at 500 feet, 500 knots in an F-16. And you come up and over a mountain range and you look at a mountain that if you were on the ground walking, it would take you all day long to get from the ground here to the peak. And we come in at 500 feet on an F-16, pull the nose up, 45, 60 degrees nose high, roll inverted up and over the top of the mountain. And you're on the other side of that mountain in about 15 seconds, the whole thing. And you're like, oh my goodness, there is nothing in the world that can do that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Helicopters, You go places, do things with helicopters you can't do with anything else. I mean, you could be a bush pilot and you could land on a very short distance, but you can't land in a spot that's 20 by 20.
Right.
But you can in a helicopter. So you're down low, you got this bubble canopy, you see everything, and you're going slow enough to be able to see things well. In an F-16 at 500 knots, it's like, whoa, that was cool. What was that?
Yeah.
With a helicopter, you're seeing everything, and you're landing in places, or you're carrying stuff or dropping stuff off, or you're helping pick somebody up. You can't do that in anything else. Or on the law enforcement side, right? You're doing a cast, we call it a cast wheel in the military, right? Close air support wheel. And you got your targeting pod on in the F-16, you got your FLIR camera, in a law enforcement helicopter, and you see what's happening. You're talking on the ground. In the military, you're rolling in and dropping stuff on them. That might be an upgrade for the law enforcement guys if they're allowed to roll in and drop stuff, right? But you're talking to the guys and saying, here's what's happening, and you're helping save somebody's life. You cannot do that in a jet, in an airplane. So that's why I love helicopters, the mission, right? Let's go save people. Let's go ahead and protect people. Let's go see and do cool things, land places you never dreamed you could land. Wait till you see the video that Vertical is going to put out. We land on something I call the Helirock in this canyon. And then we go over by these Indian ruins. There's no way for you to see these cave-dwelling Indian ruins, these particular ones, unless you're going to take a 3-day hike that's going to be excruciating, or you're going to get in a helicopter and go get in an OG hover right next to it and look at it. You just can't do it in anything else.
I'm
So
leaning toward the helicopter on that.
for sure. So that's why I love helicopters. My real first experience with Phil flying up the coast was like, man, this is unbelievable. So when I had the chance to do it later and take some lessons, it was like, I got to do this. It's so awesome. We have a guy that flies here. Big shout out to him because he's just an awesome guy. Kirby Chambliss. He's a Red Bull aerobatic pilot, air race champion, phenomenal guy. Here's a guy that's done things in airplanes most people will never dream about doing. And he's done it for 30 years. But he came to Quantum a couple years ago and got his commercial license add-on. Then he bought an R44. And guess what he does every day? He gets in his R44 and goes and flies around the desert of Arizona. And he tells me, all I want to do is fly my R44.
That's pretty cool.
It's just what I want to do. And literally every day, if his helicopter is in our hangar, which it was the other day for an annual, as soon as that thing's done, he's over here. He's picking it up because he wants to fly it every day. That's how much he loves it. And God bless that guy. His wife came and did training with us. Then he refers all these different people. He's my Quantum ambassador. Love Kirby and Kelly.
Wow. That's great. And Kirby's done a lot. I mean, a lot of people have seen him fly, and for him to say, well, I want to be in my helicopter, that if you've seen him fly an airplane, that's pretty cool. That's a big endorsement of helicopters right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's done some cool stuff in airplanes.
Yes.
Wow. Very cool. In the short time we have left, Terry, I want to really get into a couple things with safety and risk real quick, just short, but I'm curious, between your F-16 experience and both as a fighter pilot instructor, and then your helicopter experience as an instructor, and now you own a helicopter training facility. What's your personal risk management philosophy? Can you kind of, do you have a philosophy that you can put into a couple sentences, or is it too big a topic?
Yeah, I mean, that really is something that was baked into me as a young Air Force officer, a young guy learning to fly jets. And it really came down to, in fact, interestingly, when you're an Air Force pilot, you have personal minimums for instrument approaches, for example. And it's based upon the time you have in a jet, particularly that specific jet. And so even if, for example, an approach minimum is 301, when you're a wingman, let's say in the F-16, and you come into your unit, your personal minimum is set by your experience level. So it might be 501.5. Or if you're not fully through the program, it might be 702. And so what the Air Force is trying to teach you is that just because the minimum is there on an approach, or let's say you're legally allowed to strafe down to 75 feet, doesn't mean you should get there. Your personal risk management strategy is, what is my real ability? And now let's never exceed that. And as I get better and better at something, maybe my personal level is able to safely drop down there. So I basically say to my instructors, when you first start as an instructor, you are not going to do full downs, obviously, full down auto rotations. You're not even going to start out doing a lot of auto rotations with private students. We're probably going to start you off flying instruments. And we're going to build some time into your instructor, toolbox. And we're going to say, let's do the straight and level, the instrument approaches, some of the simple things, get you up to speed a little bit more that first semester with some basic level stuff. Then we're going to start stepping you into some of the more dangerous, harder to fly. You're not going to go to the hardest confined or pinnacle areas we have. You're going to first start at these three that are simple. And as your experience level grows, we're going to send you to the higher one. So my personal strategy is you understand your ability and you state that I'm never going to go beyond that. Then as my experience level gets higher, I can necessarily safely bring that down to something that's still reasonable, but challenges me. And then from that point, the idea is always just like it is in personal development. It's about growth. It's about let's get better. Let's get from better to really good to excellent, from excellent to outstanding, from outstanding to, the world's subject matter expert. And that's the leaning forward, grow, don't exceed a limit. And over time, as you're ultimately the owner, but you're kind of chief guy, I'll look at you and say, I'm really impressed with the growth I've seen in you as an instructor. And I'm going to say to you, you're now going to be cleared to do this. So I recently took, for example, a lead pilot and said, we're going to teach you to do full down auto rotations. And you're going to now teach full down auto rotations to private students and to CFIs that need to demonstrate them. So that's the basic idea. My final job on active duty, when I was teaching the Taiwanese Air Force in advanced tactics in the F-16, I was the chief of flight safety. And so my job was to basically assess and to build a program that would help those guys operate at the maximum level. You're always trying to maximize the ability of the jet and the pilot, and you got to just do it in a manner that's kind of stair-stepping that makes sense.
I love that you brought up personal minimums versus documented FAA minimums, unit minimums, department minimums, whatever it is. And it makes me feel good because I stressed that a lot too. Yeah. And told people, not just for instructors, it applies to instructors like you articulated, but just for everybody. And the same philosophy crosses over into other parts of life and law enforcement, particularly, like SWAT entries. Maybe you're not the number one going through that door initially. You're right. The number 6. You know what I mean? And same thing with canine. Leading up to, we had a thing called limited searches, where when you first got certified, you and your dog were not going to search for the worst of the worst. If you had a cop killer and you're going to search for them, you and your dog were not involved in that search. You had to get through a phase. It was very similar to what we're talking to. So I'm talking about, I really like that you brought it up that way, which kind of brought us to, you mentioned the full downs, and we kind of talked about this offline. Yeah. But let's talk about that for a little bit. The full down autos, there's a lot of helicopter pilots that don't experience very many of those, if some that don't experience any. I mean, military, they're doing a lot of the touchdowns in simulators. Right. And we talked about that, that last segment, under 40 feet, that's the most important part. I mean, you have to do things right from the beginning, obviously, to have success at the end. But talk about the philosophy that you have on that and that Quantum Helicopters has on that with relation to full down autos.
Yeah. So when I was a student, I remember, because I was a fixed wing guy, I had all this time in fixed wings. And I remember thinking, it's really interesting. We do these auto rotations. We do a power recovery starting with the flare at 40 feet. And then when we're running out of energy, we basically raise, roll on, and come down into a controlled hover. And I always thought, well, that's a neat way to finish it. It's nice and safe and all that. But what if your engine's actually not running? Yeah. and I'm solo. And I always felt like there's this chance that I'm just going to, and for a fixed wing pilot, this is really odd, right? I do this big flare up in the air. My nose is way up here. And for a fixed wing guy, that looks like a stall to a crash, right? So as a helicopter guy now, I'm thinking, okay, I do this auto, and how does it finish? I feel like I'm going to fall out of the sky and die. Now, that's not the case if you do two things, basically. If you leveled those skids and you cushioned the best you could, even if you did it a little high and a little fast, you're probably going to be okay. But I just didn't like it. I didn't like how uncomfortable it felt. So when I took over, I said, we're going to institute a new program. And that program is going to be that myself, the chief pilot, the lead pilot, the chief operating officer, those are the four guys that are cleared to do full down auto rotations. You are going to see a few full down auto rotations before you go solo, so that if you actually ever lose your engine, you know how to finish the maneuver and you know how to do it safely. You won't be proficient or great, but you'll at least have seen it. There'll be that memory of that you can do this safely and not just fall out of the sky and die. So we started doing that. It's always been a part of our CFI program that you would demonstrate a level of competency in the full down. So you would have a couple rides with, again, one of the four of us. Then eventually you'd start doing the full downs, and you'd have to demonstrate the ability to do them safely, to be signed off as a CFI. So, I was talking with a gentleman the other day flying on the law enforcement side training with us. And I asked him, do you do full downs? And he said, no, we don't, except we'll do it when a factory guy comes out. But even in a big turbine, which honestly is really pretty simple to do them in safely,
It is.
they still don't want them doing them because they don't want them to bend a helicopter on accident when you come down little tail low or one skid low and you catch something. I just feel like the risk and the obligation I feel as a guy training is I want to make you the safest possible, most capable pilot I can. The way I minimize that risk is I say I've got 4 guys that are allowed to teach you how to do this. If I just had all of my instructors doing it, we probably would bend some things occasionally because it is a complicated maneuver, especially in an R-22.
Yes.
You have to have everything correct or you can goof it up.
Yeah.
So that's my philosophy on the full downs. I know some guys that teach it always to a full down, but only in big turbines where it's pretty easy. If you did that in an R-22, every auto rotation you did, you're going to have some problems for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
I come from a place where it was all full down autos, every single one, except for when you were preparing for an FAA check ride.
Okay.
And we found that the power recovery autos became complicated.
Yeah.
For almost everybody, including the instructor, where, we had to kind of bone up on that and say, okay, we're getting close to an FAA check ride. We got to start doing some power recoveries here. And we actually had incidents, on some of that. Whereas for the full downs, because everybody got so good at them from doing so many of them, and they were all full down autos to the deck, very few problems. And I was always happy about that, and I thought about it regularly when we would talk to people, or I'd hear a speaker. This kind of came up. I'd hear somebody talking about a real auto rotation that they had. And I remember one years ago where he said, yeah, that was the first time I ever did a full down auto. And it was a real auto rotation.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, that's frightening because that last 10 feet, is where it counts. The last 40 feet for sure. But the last 10, if you haven't done everything right, that's going to be a problem. And you're going to be almost lucky to do it all right because you're so used to, the power recovery. And one more thing about that, because we talked about it at length, we talked about muscle memory at length earlier and system 1.
Yeah.
You could, if you're doing power recovery after power recovery, at 40 feet, you're going to start rolling that in a real auto. You're going to start rolling that throttle back on because that's what you have done dozens or hundreds of times, and it's not going to do anything.
That's right.
Right?
Well, so there is some potential negative transfer there. I had this
Yeah.
instructor meeting about a month ago, and I was talking to my instructors and I said, here's a way to help you kind of switch your muscle memory and your mental memory if it's a real deal. And here's what happens. It was based on a real world scenario where in an emergency, it was a switch air and a student air where he did the wrong thing and it ended up actually turning the engine off. Well, the instructor did the right thing. He entered the auto, down right aft, roll off, raise. He set the pitch. Now he is in a stable auto. And here's what he said that I think could switch the memory. He said to the student, this one's for real. This is going to be a full down. When he said that, his muscle memory now said, I'm going to the ground. There is not a power recovery. Now, when you're doing this for training, what you do differently in the R22 or the R44 is you roll the throttle into the over travel spring. Because if you don't, when you raise the collective, it's going to add torque and the aircraft's not going to be able to settle, right? So in order to do the full down, after you do your down right aft, roll off raise, you're in the auto, you roll it into the over travel spring and you have to hold it. And I said to the instructors, here's the memory mnemonic. When it's real world, you say to yourself, oh, this one's for real. This is a full down. And then, even though you don't have to, if the engine's quit, you physically roll it into the over travel spring. And that tells your brain, we're going to the ground. We're not power recovering. And now when we get down there, we flare and we know that we're actually going to lower the collective as we flare a little bit, right? Let that RPM build. Just as soon as we start to settle, that's where we bump. We start a half level. We come down a little closer, then we finish the level, we raise and we cushion. And so I'm trying to get them to have a memory mnemonic now. And so when I'll do full downs with them, I'll say to them, here's what you're going to say. You're going to enter your auto just like any other auto. I'm going to say your engine just failed. And you're going to tell me, oh, this is for real. This is going to be a full down. Now they're going to roll it into the over travel and we're going to finish it. And I think I'll build muscle memory into them and mental memory to do it right.
That's cool. That's a great idea. John, what was your experience with touchdown autos, pull downs?
I'm glad you asked because that's something I wanted to talk about. My agency was city policy, and I think a policy by the insurance that we would not use our own aircraft for full down autos.
Yep.
So we went with Hellstream, and they have great instructors. The aircraft was great, but the one concern I always had was the difference in weight and feel in those aircraft. Right. Those are stripped down A-stars, and there's no mission equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Even picking the aircraft up felt a lot different because of the difference in weight and weight distribution. So I always felt like you guys were at LAPD and LA County Sheriffs. I wouldn't say lucky is the right word, but I was envious that you guys got to do full down autos in fully mission equipped aircraft.
Yeah.
Because I do think it would feel different if you did have, a full.
Oh, it does.
A full down auto. So, I feel like that's an important thing to talk about. I think a lot of agencies, like you said, are in the position where they cannot use their agency aircraft for those things.
Yeah.
And I get it, but I do
too.
I think it's a disadvantage if you ever find yourself in a real emergency and you've got an auto.
Yeah.
Just my thought.
No, I think as a pilot, you'd say, listen, I'll be a better pilot, a safer pilot. And the chief pilot, the lieutenant could always say, you're right. Let's make you better in that regard. But they're balancing the city council issues and the mayor issues they have to answer when on a full down, you bang up a helicopter and they go, hey, what's the chance a turbine actually loses its engine and you have to do a full down auto in real time? How many of these pilots have ever had that happen in their whole career? Right. And everybody says never. And then the city council and the mayor says, so you just banged up a $10 million aircraft for something that's never going to happen. It's the push and pull, right? The pilots want it. The bean counters, they don't.
High risk, low probability that's
right.
That's going to happen.
That's right. That's perfectly stated, John. That's exactly what it is. It is a very low probability, but if and when it happens, the risk is through the roof. And if you've never, ever done one before, at least had it demonstrated to you that you felt it, you saw it, you saw the RPM, you heard the RPM on whatever aircraft you're flying.
Yeah.
You need to see and hear and feel that at least a few times.
That's right.
So that you know what the differences are. Otherwise, you get overconfident.
Right.
Oh, I just roll it back in and come to a hover. I can hover.
Right.
It's like, no, this is a high risk maneuver. You're trying to hit that spot right there, and not at a hover, but on the deck. And that's all you're going to have in real life. So good conversation. I'm glad this kind of came up again, because we talked about the relationship with muscle memory and all that too. That was really interesting, Terry, how you've attacked the muscle memory system one thing. What was there a particular phrase or rule that Terry Blakemore has used over his flying career with students when you're instructing them, whether it be in an F-16 or an R-22? It doesn't matter. Is there something that you personally are known for using?
Yes. It's the phrase that I use with everybody, from students all the way through it. Whatever they're struggling, they're fighting the aircraft, they got anxiety, whatever, I'll say to them, wiggle your fingers and your toes. And the reason I will say that is because when I was an instructor in the backseat of an F-16 and I put a guy on an air refueling mission and we're going to go air refuel, as soon as he pulled up next to that tanker, even though he'd flown formation for the last year and a half, 3 feet of wingtip clearance with other F-16s, with T-38s, T-37, whatever he's flying, as soon as he pulls up that close to a massive aircraft, it just looks overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's not maneuverable and that he can't be agile like I can be. And now the boom comes down, and the boom would be right here in front of you, and then it slides to the right, comes down, and if you could reach through your canopy, you could grab onto it. It's within just a few feet of your head. And as soon as they get real close, they'd start tensing up their shoulders, their arms, and now you have gross motor movements. So now the aircraft is doing crazy things. So I would take the jet and I'd say, hey, listen, wiggle your fingers and your toes, relax. It's very hard to wiggle your fingers and your toes if you're tense, but if you'll relax, you can be like, okay, now I'm good. So that's the saying for sure, that my instructors, my students, they'd tell you, yeah, Terry's always telling us, wiggle your fingers and your toes, just relax.
And you do it in the R-22 as well.
Oh, for sure. All the time.
It applies.
I said it to a guy yesterday. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, man.
That's great. That is great.
I felt like the tighter I squeezed the collective and the cyclic, the more control I'd have. And that's obviously not the case, right?
It's the opposite.
The white knuckle effect really took effect in when I was a new pilot. But what you're saying is absolutely true. I remember in the early days, seeing the seasoned pilots control everything with 2 fingers.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do that? That's crazy. And here I am white knuckling that thing,
I took a guy on an intro flight the other day, and this is one of the most excited guys I've met in a long time to get into the helicopter world. I mean, he had so many ideas and was just so jazzed about it. So we get in the helicopter, we go out, I introduce a little hovering, and now we're just going to go straight and level out to an off airport. So I'm just telling him, hey, listen, you're going to come on the controls with me, and I just want you to point the helicopter right where it's going right now. Just fly towards that mountain and keep the compass right near the horizon. This is straight and level flight, piece of cake. So he's on there and he's starting to fly, and he's doing a lot of things that right-handers do. They tend to pull towards themselves, kind of a left climbing turn. And so we're working all that. And after a while, I could tell he's getting more tense. So I used my phrase, and he says, hey, can you take the helicopter for a minute? So I said, sure. So I got the helicopter, and he goes, oh, my hands are sweating so much. So he's wiping his hands off because his brain is working so hard. We used to call it helmet fire in the military. Your helmet is on fire with information. And literally, the student would have the air conditioning on full blast because he's legitimately making so much energy. At night, I'd be jacket on, gloves on, freezing. I'd be saying to the student, hey, listen, I'm not a penguin back here. Can you turn the air conditioning down? I don't know what you're doing up there, but they're just working so hard. And
that's funny.
That whole just relax a little bit, that can help.
Do you guys remember when you first started learning in the helicopter? Remember how your forearms would hurt at the end of the day? I mean, you come out going, oh my gosh, you're rubbing your forearms, and you go, oh, that's because of that stupid instructor. That's because you're gripping it too tight, you idiot. You got to fix that. Easier said than done, but we all did it. We all eventually did it. It clicks one day, and you loosen up.
That's right.
But then it goes away. I just did a flight in the 530F with Dave Salem, and I was flying most of that flight, And I noticed especially in the beginning, I was gripping it again because it's been years since I've had to do that. And then by the end, I relaxed and my flying improved dramatically over that 1.3 or 1.4 that we did together. So it's real. I mean,
It
it's
is
real.
real.
And that's cool that that's your phrase. That's
And
really
this is
cool.
another thing that relates very closely to that. And it would be the fact that, well, there's one thing we cannot do in an emergency, and that is panic, right? Your normal, mind is going to get tense and it's going to panic when something happens that's so difficult. And the one thing I say to these guys, and I'll say it to my kids, my wife even, like, hey, the one thing we can't do right now is panic. If we'll stay under control, if we'll relax a little bit, take a deep breath and think about what we're going to do next, it'll go a lot better.
I'll talk about that as it relates to law enforcement and critical incidents, mainly shootings.
Yeah.
That is a very common, initial response. And through training and muscle memory, we do the range. We're trying to precondition ourselves to be able to respond, based on muscle memory. So you're not having to think through and go through those steps, which, I guess as it kind of relates to the conversation we're having with Full On Auto, it's kind of the same thing, So interesting how stress affects the body. You talk about auditory exclusion,
Right.
and visual hallucinations. The things, there's a book by a famous police psychologist, and he debriefs a bunch of police officers on shootings that they were involved in. And one officer talks about being in a hallway, and he says he sees a bad guy. The bad guy comes around the corner with a gun, and all of a sudden he sees beer cans or beer bottles flying at him, and he's really confused as to why there's beer bottles flying at him. Well, what really happened was that the officer perceived the gun, saw the gun, engaged the suspect. What those beer bottles that he thought he saw were actually shell casings being ejected out of his own handgun.
Yeah.
But it's wild, how
he
that
didn't hear him at all. He just could see the slow motion probably.
Yeah. So interesting how the body perceives and reacts to high stress situations.
So I'm going to ask you the same question twice, Terry, but it's for different airframes.
All right.
Describe the most stressful situation in an F-16.
Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details.
For me personally, the incident that comes to mind is a time when I was on a night vision goggle air-to-air flight with a new wingman. So in this case, it was the first female F-16 pilot in our unit at Hill Air Force Base. And we were over the Utah desert, so on the west side of the Great Salt Lake. And if you know anything about that terrain, it's kind of nice flat desert, and then it becomes very mountainous. So we're working in this airspace. We're the blue air, so we're the guys that are actually firing and executing tactics. We have red air that's there to replicate a threat. In this case, it was a Chinese threat that they were replicating. So we started the fight. And one of the things you need to know about night vision goggles, and you guys probably do, but maybe some don't, is that night vision goggles are very sensitive to moisture in the air. So if you fly into a cloud, which is itself obviously moisture, you will get what's called scintillation, where it's like TV static, right? It starts just really occluding the amount of visual references you're able to get. So we didn't see anything that looked like real weather that was an issue in the airspace. We had seen the weather brief that there was some under us, but it looked like we were pretty much in the clear when we got there. So we pushed it up. And when I say push it up, I'll just describe kind of what I mean. Here comes the fights on the vol time. And so we call fights on. And when we do that, we start executing our tactics. So she moves out to tactical line abreast 2 miles. We light the afterburners and we start into a climb. We get supersonic, we get high, we get fast. I target her radar in, I target my radar, and we take shots as soon as we have hostile declarations. When you do that, you do a maneuver where you basically offset to kind of slow down the closure of the fighters coming at you. So that if they've shot any missiles, you have the ability to delay the time. Well, as soon as you do that and you get to what's called the point where the missile is going to go fully active or semi-active actually, and you're not going to have to data link the missile anymore, you can snip it. You can break the radar lock, and then you do a 6G 135-degree slice back, start descending and run away, so that any missiles they have inbound hopefully don't catch you. And there's certain ranges that you got to do that in. If you do it within those ranges, you're good. Well, as we do that maneuver, I look out, as I always did, trying to look at what my wingman's doing. And I notice all of a sudden that my goggles are really scintillating. So we've just entered some heavy moisture. And as I see that maneuver continue, I notice all of a sudden as I roll out, and we're supposed to be heading, fast and low, that my wingman is still inverted or getting closer to inverted and going farther and farther downhill. So I quiz her real quick to posit. That means to give me your position. What's your status? And at that moment, she does the one thing that you learn in flight school you have to do when you get spatially disoriented. You have to admit it. If you don't admit it, you'll fly yourself into the ground. And I've lost multiple friends having killed themselves in this scenario. So she says to me, 2 is spatially disoriented. And she delayed that long enough that had she not said it within about a second of the time she did, I was going to say, bail out, bail out, bail out. And that means eject, because she's over the mountains and she's only a couple of seconds from being able to correct the attitude or hitting the mountain. So I see this happening and I say, get on the round dials and recover. And that goes back to pilot training. Talk about things you say that trigger a memory. In pilot training, it is burned into your memory that if you're ever spatially disoriented, you get on the round ADI, which is the attitude directional indicator, and you recover off of that. You stop looking at your heads-up display. You stop looking outside trying to make sense of your orientation because you already obviously couldn't do it. That's why you're in the position you're in. You get on your round dial and you recover. So if you're in the gray, you roll away. If you're in the black, you roll back. You pull towards the horizon and you recover. And she was about 2 seconds away from me telling her to eject. She did the right thing. She admitted it. I said, get on the round dials and recover. And as soon as I said that, she put her eyes down here. She executed the maneuver. She brought her aircraft up to level and everything was good. But for that moment, because I've lost some friends again, in that moment, I thought I'm about to tell her to eject. And if she doesn't respond to me, it's because she's kind of locked up mentally and still trying to figure it out. And I'm going to watch her fly into the ground. So that was a stressful moment that was solved because she did the right thing.
Yeah.
And she executed the training that saved her life.
Inadvertent IMC and an F-16 on goggles.
Yep.
I mean, it can happen to anyone, Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty stressful. So let's go to the next one. Most stressful situation in a helicopter for you personally.
Flying with an intro student, trying to teach him to hover. Every half second, I'm saving my life,
Of course.
I tell these guys, listen, I'm going to be real close by because literally, if I let you go for more than 1 second, you're going to kill both of us. I've not had any students I had a guy one time, I wouldn't say stressful, more like frustrating. I had a guy who was doing great, doing wonderful on his auto rotations. Here we go. We're coming up to a 180 auto. And instead of going down, right, aft, roll off, raise, he goes down, right, aft, roll on. Now, when you've taken all the pitch out of the blades and you've gone aft cyclic, you've already given the rotor everything it needs to go up. And now when you roll on, you are at an immediate overspeed. So I was able to catch it at about the 1.5 second point. And you've only got a couple of seconds at the transient, depending on how far you go over your limits. But the reason that was mildly stressful for me is that's a $45,000 mistake when you do that in the R-44. And it literally is like a momentary thing. And you just bought yourself a downed R-44 and pull the engine and go through it all. I had a guy do that once, not with me in it, but to one of my R-22s. He was a good instructor. And I said, hey, listen, we all make mistakes. I know you've been a good instructor. I want you to pick your chin up. I need you to be a good instructor and not hang your head and make another mistake. I need you to go out there and be a great instructor for me. You're forgiven. Go be better. And I didn't fire him. I didn't say, get out of my, I gave him another shot and said, I realized the difference between a mistake and a crime. You made a legitimate mistake. It's okay. Go catch the next one. But I would say good. The stress for me is more as an owner, like, who's going to overspeed my engine today, or who's going to, bang a helicopter up. And I've been very fortunate. I've only had one of those. So
expect the unexpected.
That's right.
That's a good phrase for all instructors out there. Even when you are the most confident you can be in the student you have, they can still try to kill you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Wow, this has been fantastic, Terry. We really appreciate all of your time. We know how busy you are. And so, John, final thoughts?
Terry, I'd just like to thank you for joining us in the Hangar Z podcast, for all the stuff you're doing for the industry. Your passion for aviation, in particular helicopter aviations, is really infectious. I think anytime a student can go to a facility and be trained by somebody that you want to hang out with, the opportunity to learn grows exponentially. And I can tell just in the time that we've spent sitting together that you've got that personality and the professional training that you guys are offering at Quantum allows for folks to come in and truly absorb the information that is necessary.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We really do. We love it here. Everybody's serious about what they do. We take every student and their particular abilities and their needs, and we just mentor them through the program. Just like we did in the Air Force, we'd say, listen, you bring the right attitude to the table, you bring a work ethic with it, and we'll get you there. In my pilot training class, our patch had a pilot with a big banana next to it, and it said, with enough bananas, you can teach a monkey to fly. And so if a person brings the right attitude, we'll feed you the bananas, and we'll make it happen for you.
Awesome. Well, Terry, thank you again. Look forward to seeing you at the next trade show. Any chance you're going to be at Verticon or any future shows like that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll be at Verticon every year.
Okay.
So we'll see you there for sure, if not sometime before.
And for folks that may be interested in getting more information on Quantum, where would you suggest they go?
The best place would be just to our website, quantumhelicopters.com. When they're on there, particularly if they're law enforcement, look for the little blue rectangle that says Public Safety Aviation Training or Agency Training. And that will give them, particularly leadership or chief pilots that are like, I'm looking for a potential to take something off of our plates, let somebody else professionally give me back a commercial level pilot or even a CFI. That part of our webpage will not only tell you what the program looks like, all the benefits, the things that you might ask, does this make sense? But it'll give you the exact costs of private instrument commercial ratings for the average guy. We don't sell any snake oil. We don't say, hey, we can knock it out in 30 hours or 40 hours. We give you the average, which is, hey, you need about 60 hours of dual time and you need your required 10 hours of solo. There are guys that do it faster than that, but there are guys that do it a little longer. This is a good average. So we give you a real legitimate price structure. It's per hour. Everything will be refunded to you or charged to you if you take more or less time. But it's all very clearly delineated. We give you the hotels we have deals with. There's food places, entertainment. Everything is right here. It's within 2 miles of our facility, and we can knock your training out. So if you go to our website, look at that little rectangle deal, give us a call. We'll answer any questions you have, and we can take care of you.
I'm glad you brought up the logistics, the hotels and food side of it, because a lot of folks, they're having to travel beyond their normal area of operation and want to make sure there's a place to stay that's close to the facility they're training at and all those things. So cool that you have not only the great training, but access to the things you need, such as a place to stay and some good places to grab some food afterwards.
I'll just wrap it by saying thank you very much. This has been really cool too. I learned a lot. I love the things that you brought to Quantum. I look back and go, wow, I'm so glad I asked about that, because that was really cool. And that's not just the rote memory of the emergency procedures, but the muscle memory and combining those two things.
Right.
I love your background. I love all the things you've done. And I really like I really like to hear how many of the Quantum people have stayed at Quantum so long. That says a lot for that company. You made a good choice there, and I know you're only making it better. And that's because of your background and experience. So, Terry, it's been a pleasure to have you. We hope to see you again soon and spend some more time with you and have a beer with you because John wants to, and I do too. That'd be great. Wish we had more time at AppsCon, but that's a busy place. So
it is. I was just happy to run into you there. I didn't know for sure who would all be there, so it was great to see you guys there.
It was great. I'm so glad we got to chat a little bit there and meet before we got to record with you.
You bet.
So Terry, again, thank you very much, and we'll catch you at a future show in person.
Okay.
On behalf of the Hangar Z, thank you for your time. Thanks for your expertise. We wish you all the best at Quantum Helicopters. For those of you listening, Quantum Helicopters out of Chandler, Arizona, I mean, take a look at them. They are really doing a lot of great things, and Terry's a big part of that. And we're just thankful to have him on the Hangar Z. So with that, everybody out there, don't forget to like and subscribe. We really appreciate your support. Check out Vertical Helicast, all the other podcasts on the Vertical Helicast platform. And we just really enjoy doing what we do because we get to meet and talk to people like Terry. So thanks again for listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z Podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details. Thank you to our sponsor, CNC Technologies. CNC Technologies, serving law enforcement, government, and military markets with tailored mission solutions, system training, and live 24/7 support with CNC.live platform. Explore more at CNCTechnologies.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode with Terry Blakemore. Terry has a great life story, and it was inspiring to learn about his focus and dedication in achieving his goals in aviation. F-16s to R-22s is not the normal route in aviation, but it sure worked for Terry. We particularly enjoyed Terry's perspective on training and safety in both fighter jets and helicopters. To learn more about what Quantum Helicopters in Chandler, Arizona has to offer, go to quantumhelicopters.com. Quantum certainly has a great deal to offer any student looking for first-class helicopter instruction. To learn even more about Terry, be sure to check out the Helicopter Podcast with Halsey Scheider. Terry was Halsey's guest for episode 129, and it was a great conversation. Speaking of other podcasts on the Vertical Helicast platform, there's some amazing content on the Real Rescue Podcast with Jason Quinn, the Vertical MRO Podcast, and the Valor Flight Crew Podcast. Vertical Valor Magazine certainly has you covered on everything rotorcraft. Thanks again for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z Podcast.